Exposed: how one single dad's incredible act transformed a begging female CEO's life forever. Mike stood in the bustling grocery store, his cart half full, but his mind was elsewhere: his small auto repair shop, the bills piling up, and Emily's rebellious phase weighing heavily on his shoulders. The last thing he expected as he rounded the corner, straining under the burden of life's demands, was the sight of Sarah. She sat crumpled on the pavement, her once polished demeanor reduced to scruffy clothes and a haunted gaze. Memories of her achievements flickered in his mind, the CEO who thrived, adored by her colleagues. Now, she was begging for spare change. Was this truly the fate of someone who once commanded boardrooms? The conflict surged within him. Should he ignore the palpable desperation in her eyes and roll on? He hesitated, guilt gripping his gut. Though he had little to spare, the thought of turning away gnawed at his conscience. He felt he should help. But what if he regretted it? The weight of Emily's future was pressing down as fierce as the looming financial burdens of the shop. Juggling a struggling business and a teenage daughter who seemed hell-bent on sowing chaos within their lives, could he risk vouching for someone else? Suddenly, without entirely understanding why, he approached Sarah. Would you like a job?" His words were clumsy, unexpected. She blinked, taken aback, disinterest mingled with hope flickering in those expressive eyes. "A job?" she murmured, as if the word tasted foreign on her tongue. "What do you have in mind?" He gestured back toward the shop, where engines crooned like distant lullabies. It was a gamble, and Mike wrestled with the repercussions. Would this be yet another mistake that placed Emily's needs in jeopardy? Or could it perhaps give them both a reason to care, a chance to unite their fractured spirits? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Sarah settled into her role at the shop, weirder things began to happen. Her CEO persona sometimes struggled with the gritty realities of oil stains and rust. While she fumbled with car parts and mechanics, he tried to dismiss rising doubts. She was trying, they both were. And strangely, Emily started warming up to Sarah, their connection sparking a flicker of warmth in the cold expanse of their lives. But shadows from Sarah's past loomed large. The community whispered, indulging in questions that felt like knives scraping against his resolve. He could feel his reputation as well as his chances of providing for Emily teetering on the edge. Each day that passed felt heavier, ripe with expectations, and as uncertainty mounted, Mike found himself teetering on the edge of his own doubt. Would the townspeople condemn him for taking a chance on the fallen CEO? Their judgment felt stifling, almost palpable. Was their budding camaraderie worth risking everything he had carved out for Emily's future? The stakes felt unbearable. And just when hope seemed tangible, Sarah received a cryptic message, an anonymous tip threatening to reveal secrets that could shatter their fragile world, unleashing whispers that would taint their hard-earned respect. The quiet town morphed into a pressure cooker, and suddenly Mike faced a gut-wrenching dilemma. Would he shield Sarah from this inevitable storm, risking the foundation he built for Emily? Or allow her to confront her past while standing firm, unsure of what this choice could cost him? The weight of it all became an unbearable anchor dragging him down, each potential outcome swirling in his mind like storm clouds before the chaos unleashed. Mike found himself at a crossroads, a moment that could alter everything he held dear. Sometimes, the hardest fights are just beginning, and they could redefine not just paths, but lives themselves. With every tick of the clock, the weight of the decision loomed heavier in Mike's chest. His nights turned restless, sleep eluding him as the specter of failure painted grim scenes. He oscillated between his obligation to protect Emily and the newfound hope he saw flickering in Sarah. In the shop, she tried her best, but mechanics took labor and focus skills she had yet to develop. Each misstep and hesitant turn of a wrench felt like a setback to him, igniting a storm of frustration, not just for her struggles, but for the impossibility of their situation. One afternoon, as the sun cast a golden hue across the grease-stained floor, Emily burst through the shop door. "Dad, can I ask Sarah to come to the school dance?" Her innocent request pierced through Mike's anxious thoughts, thrusting him into a whirl of conflicting emotions. He wanted nothing more than for Emily to flourish, to pull herself away from her rebellious tendencies. Yet, could he allow Sarah to breach the walls that had guarded Emily's heart so fiercely? "Is that what you really want?" he asked cautiously, measuring his words. "Yeah. She's nice and different." Emily's eyes brightened, a rare enthusiasm illuminating her features. "Different?" He hesitated, questioning the implications. "Different," she repeated, a subtle smile washing over her face. "You know, like cool different. It's kind of like having a friend who has been through stuff." A flicker of hope sparked within him. Maybe Sarah's presence could offer Emily a glimpse into resilience. But before he could respond, Sarah herself walked into the room, wiping her hands on a rag. Her weary eyes clashed with his, raw and filled with gratitude. "Hey, Mike, can I take a minute?" she asked, her voice steady yet edged with vulnerability. "Sure," he replied, gesturing toward the back office to have a private moment while Emily lingered a few feet away, pretending to be interested in organizing tools. As they stepped into the enclosed space, Mike's heart raced. The tension hung thick in the air, heavy with all the unspoken fears that resided between them. "I got a message," Sarah began, her expression hardening. "It's about the past. They know where I am." It felt like they could destroy everything over a few words. His initial instinct was to protect her, to wall off any danger that could impinge upon Emily. Yet, looking at her a mixture of vulnerability and strength, he felt overwhelmed by her resolve. "What do you want to do?" he asked, the question flowing effortlessly. "I want to confront it," she said firmly, each word imbued with determination. "I can't run anymore." Somehow, the situation tilted sharply. Mike sensed this moment was a defining one, not just for Sarah, but for him too. "Then let us confront it together," he offered, surprising himself with the confidence that surged within him. That simple declaration felt liberating, pulling him one step away from the isolation he had settled into, reminding him that shared burdens lightened the load. As they exited the office, Emily's anticipation filled the air. Mike glanced toward her, aware of the fragile balance forming. Sarah was integrating into their lives as both friend and ally, but what hidden dangers lingered? This newfound camaraderie seemed to defy the very nature of their histories. Yet, the quiet town continued to buzz with insidious whispers, and the mysterious threat loomed ever-present. Would he dare ride the wave of Sarah's return into the soft, welcoming light, or would he retreat, caging Emily's future behind uncertainty born from fear? A knock on the door interrupted his conflicting thoughts, eliciting a sense of dread. As Sarah opened it, the revelation awaited. Could it be the harbinger of ruin? Or the turning point they so desperately needed? The moment was at hand, where every choice reignited the pulse of their entwined destinies. The chaos of impending truths and the possibility of forgiveness intermingled, and Mike braced himself for the unraveling of everything he thought he knew. What awaited them on the other side of the door? Would they be ready to face the unraveling storm together, or would it tear them apart? The door opened slowly, revealing a weathered face Mike recognized instantly. Tom, a figure from Sarah's past, stood there, confidence radiating alongside a heavy cloak of memories that darkened the threshold. Mike's heart quickened. This was the confrontation Sarah sought. "Sarah," Tom said smoothly, a predatory gleam in his eye. "I didn't think I'd find you still hanging around here. Guess you're not as good at hiding as you thought." Mike felt the protective instincts ignite within him. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "What do you want?" "Just a chat," Tom replied casually, though the subtle threat tinged the air. He shot a glance at Emily, who stood just out of earshot, unaware of the stakes mounting in the room. "You know how these things go, old friends catching up." "No old friends here," Sarah asserted sharply, her newfound confidence edging toward defiance. "You're a ghost I'd rather not see again." Tom's smile twisted slightly. You can't just erase the past, Sarah. You might want to, but it'll always be lurking behind you. The tension escalated, thickening as Mike assessed the situation. He placed himself firmly between Tom and Sarah, an instinctive barrier against the impending storm. Whatever you're here for, it's not welcome. Tom stared at Mike, eyebrows raised, the mask of calm slipping. And who are you to dictate terms? Just a mechanic playing protector? Mike felt anger flare but suppressed it. Losing control wasn't an option. I'm someone who gives a damn about what happens here. You need to leave. The atmosphere was electric, brewing with the unspoken anxieties of the past tangled with the hope of the present. As Tom took a step closer, Mike noticed Sarah's breathing had quickened, perception and fear mingling. Her resolve was threatened, and he wanted her to feel the strength of his presence. You think you're saving her? You don't know a thing about her, Tom sneered, but Mike saw him falter, sensing the intensity of their unified front. Maybe you should listen to her, Tom, Mike asserted, his voice low but firm. The choice of words marked a critical juncture, a reminder of Sarah's agency. This wasn't just about protection, it was about empowerment. Well, I'm not going anywhere without addressing some unfinished business. Tom pointedly shifted his gaze to Sarah, his demeanor weakening under the shared defiance she now portrayed. Business? Sarah echoed, her voice steady. You mean threats and manipulation? I'm not a pawn anymore. As their eyes locked, Mike recognized the pivotal moment of Sarah stepping fully into her strength. This confrontation was no longer just about the past, it was a passageway to establishing a new identity, one that defied her history before it could enslave her to it. Imagine walking away and taking control. It sounds so simple, but feel it. It's time. His words surged with urgency, an appeal not just directed at Sarah, but also reverberating into his own heart. Tom disregarded that rising tide. This is all fun and games until someone gets hurt. Don't say I didn't warn you both. With that, he turned on his heel and left as unexpectedly as he arrived. Silence consumed the room, weighing heavily upon them. Mike exhaled, siphoning some tension from the air while wrestling with the realization of how far they had just pushed against the current. What just happened? Emily whispered, stepping closer, her innocence palpable in a world suddenly manifesting complexity. Mike glanced at Sarah. Her face was a canvas of emotion, fear, but also empowerment. Something changed, he answered, surprise competing with relief. How do you feel? He asked her, but the question went deeper than he intended. She looked up, a hint of a smile breaking through the storm clouds. It feels different. Like it's time to write my own story. This moment, emboldened by confrontation, sparked greater possibilities that lay ahead. Mike sensed they were on a precipice, relationships shifting, history reshaped. Just then, a new dilemma edged in. The confrontation had prompted internal growth but also summoned deeper questions about the future. Would they embrace the uncertain path ahead together, or would lingering shadows from the past intertwine and jeopardize their newfound courage? As he watched Sarah find her ground among the chaos, a truth swirled within him that begged to be disentangled. This was just the beginning, and already they stood on the brink of transformation. What lay ahead as they ventured into uncharted territories of trust and vulnerability? The stakes had been raised, and Mike's heart raced at the thought of what could possibly follow. Would they fall into a deeper relationship, or would darker forces emerge that remained to be seen? The aftermath of Tom's visit lingered heavily over Mike and Sarah. The electric tension had fractured the silence into shards, each reflecting a different facet of their emotions. As Emily busied herself with her toys, fleeting glances at Sarah and Mike revealed a quiet storm brewing in each of them. Are you really okay? Mike asked, breaking the stillness that held them captive. Sarah had retreated momentarily into herself, her face betraying a mixture of relief and anxiety. It was a new territory for both of them, a fragile moment that teetered on the edge between vulnerability and self-discovery. I will be, she replied, her voice soft but carrying the weight of newfound resolve. The fear from the encounter with Tom was still palpable, yet something else sparked within her, a desire, a flicker of determination that began to cast light on the shadows of her past. Mike couldn't help but admire how Sarah had stood her ground against Tom. He had watched her evolve from someone shackled by her history into a force that defied the dictates of an oppressive past. Yet, the question gnawed at him: how could he ignite that flame of courage in her further? "I know this isn't easy," he said, his tone deliberate. "But you have to prepare yourself for whatever comes next. There's power in confronting what's been left unsaid." She nodded, a flicker of understanding igniting in her gaze. "Tom's come back, and I can't keep pretending this isn't haunting me. I need to confront the remnants of that chapter, for me." Her admission revealed a layer of maturity that Mike had long suspected existed beneath the surface, waiting to break free. As they exchanged glances, Mike felt a surge of admiration mingling with a hint of trepidation. If they walked this path together, it wouldn't just be Sarah shedding her past, it would also challenge him to confront his own insecurities, to delve deeper into the shadows he often kept hidden. It was time to confront all their unspoken fears and insecurities. "What if we write down our feelings?" he suggested suddenly, the thought springing forth unbidden. "We can create a plan. A strategy to navigate this together." Sarah looked intrigued, appreciation flickering in her eyes. "A plan to face Tom?" "Exactly," Mike affirmed, feeling a rush of enthusiasm. "And to build on who we are now, not who we used to be. It's about ownership, recognizing our strengths, and not allowing him to dictate our narratives." Their gaze connected, and in that fleeting moment, the walls around Sarah's heart seemed to crack open just a bit more. "You think it'll help?" she asked cautiously. "I do," he replied, conviction etched into his words. "Let us lay it all out there, the fears, the ambitions, what we want from ourselves. Writing them down gives them flesh, makes them real. Then we can reclaim control." As she contemplated, Mike felt a wave of protective instinct wash over him. This wasn't merely about confronting Tom. It was about helping Sarah step into her full potential and, in the process, discovering what he truly wanted for himself as well. "What if I'm not strong enough?" she whispered, and he recognized that struggle's self-doubt creeping back in. "You are," he promised, his voice unwavering. "You've just started to uncover that. Even when the darkness looms, you have the ability to shine through." With a newfound sense of purpose, Sarah's eyes glimmered. A tactile energy sparked between them, a silent acknowledgement that together, they could navigate the tumultuous waters ahead. "I'm ready," she said simply, the determination lacing her voice. As they began to scribble their thoughts on paper, Mike felt the bonds of their relationship shifting. Each word carved deeper into the facade of their pasts, and as time slipped away, he couldn't shake the sense that the owls were circling. Among the revelations threadbare with honesty lay the anticipation of confronting not only the past but the deeper truths within themselves. What they were about to embark upon would inevitably transform everything: friendship, trust, perhaps even love, but the specter of Tom loomed close. Would the penned truths ignite a fire strong enough to hold his darkness at bay? The stakes were rising as their paths intertwined, and Mike felt uncertainty crackle in the air, propelling them toward an impending encounter rife with both promise and peril. Would they seize the momentum to evolve into their truest selves, or would Tom's return strip away the fragile layers they had just begun to build? The evening air hung thick with anticipation as Mike and Sarah turned their confrontation strategy into a tangible blueprint. Each detail they scribed onto the pages felt like an excavation of buried fears and hopes, layers of their psyches peeling back to reveal raw, unembellished truths. While Sarah drafted her thoughts, Mike observed the neat formations of her letters, noting how each stroke reflected her growing resolve. This exchange felt more than just a personal journey. It was an emergent partnership where trust became both the foundation and the scaffolding. "What do you imagine the conversation with Tom will look like?" Sarah posed, breaking the quiet analysis that had fallen over them. Mike leaned back, allowing the question to linger. "I envision calling him out," he admitted after some contemplation, reminding him that he no longer holds power over the narrative. She nodded appreciatively, her analytical mind processing each angle. "But what if he doesn't respond the way we anticipate?" The fear crept back into her tone, a reminder that breaking free from emotional chains meant stepping into unpredictable territory. That's the risk we take, but think about this, he replied, drawing on his own insights. Every time we hesitate to confront someone like Tom, we give them the authority to dictate our reactions. This time, it's about us reclaiming that authority. Mike's voice steadied her own tremor of doubt, forging a connection rooted in shared vulnerability. It wasn't just about Sarah confronting her past, it was also about Mike discovering his voice, a cascade of realizations igniting within him. He had long played the role of the supporter, the consistent presence, but now, as he stood alongside Sarah, he sensed an emergence of his own unacknowledged aspirations. Let us acknowledge what we want from ourselves, he suggested, shifting the conversation back to the written strategy. The intention was to draw out their desires, to apply a proactive approach rather than be mere recipients of Tom's narrative. I want to embrace the fullness of me, not just the pieces Tom left behind, Sarah declared, her ambition a palpable force in the dimly lit room. Mike felt a flicker of hope ignite in his chest, considering how their shared ambition could play a pivotal role in neutralizing the shadows cast by Tom. I want to build a life where I'm not defined by the fear of others, he added, instinctively penning his thoughts next to hers. It was a mutual unveiling, laying bare their ambitions, raw and unfiltered. As their discussions deepened, the air felt charged with unspoken potential. The walls that confined and defined them visually fluctuated, almost as if echoing the transformative nature of their dialogue. They were two people stripped of past labels, forging ahead to redefine the essence of their identities. But then, an unexpected hesitation emerged within Mike. What if his newfound ambition meant drawing closer to Sarah in ways he hadn't fully allowed himself to consider? His heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear, stirring questions about vulnerability, longing, and commitment. Writing this down forces us to be accountable, she said, interrupting his spiraling thoughts. We can't just measure our growth in words, we have to apply it in actions. Mike's internal conflict sharpened. It wasn't just about facing Tom anymore. It was about choosing to embrace genuine connection with Sarah, even if that required opening doors he had long kept shut. Actions, he echoed her, the word laden with meaning. They both understood that every decision made in the weeks to come would shape not just their confrontation with Tom, but their relationship's trajectory. Suddenly, a ping on Sarah's phone broke the tension. The screen illuminated her face with a message. She paled as she read it aloud. You can't run away from your past. I will find you. A chill raced through the room, wrapping them both in a numbing embrace. This wasn't just an unwelcome reminder, it was a direct call to arms. Would they rise to the occasion and confront their joint antagonist, or would fear weave its way back into their psyche, binding them once more to the darkness they fought so hard to escape? The moment had arrived, escalating the stakes dramatically. Would their plan take shape, or would they succumb to Tom's lingering shadows? The air buzzed with tension, and uncertainty hung thick around them, marking the beginning of a pivotal juncture in their journey, a crossroad they could no longer avoid. The weight of the message lingered in the air like a specter, casting an unsettling shroud over their carefully constructed plans. Mike stood still, frozen by a sudden surge of doubt that coursed through him. Sarah's eyes darted away from the phone, her face a mask of determination mingled with fear. Do you think he knows we're planning something? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if that would diminish the threat. I don't know, Mike responded, his heart pounding as clarity began to sharpen within the haze of anxiety. But it doesn't matter as much as what we do next. What had once seemed like an abstract confrontation morphed into a tangible truth, a reality that demanded immediate action. They had dared to challenge the narratives imposed on them, and now Tom's ominous presence loomed larger than ever. We need to take control of this, Mike stated, a steely edge beginning to slice through the layers of uncertainty surrounding him. Suddenly, the thrill of confrontation felt exhilarating rather than terrifying. The focus shifted, fueling a courageous resolve within him. Let us write out a detailed plan for our confrontation, emphasizing our stance. As he spoke, Sarah nodded slowly, reevaluating the fear that had initially captured her. There was no time to indulge in self-doubt, the narrative of their lives was once again in their hands. I want to script my part, she interjected, an eagerness sparking in her eyes. I need to rehearse what I want to say. That way, when I'm face to face with him, I won't falter. Mike admired the transformation in her demeanor. She had shed a layer of vulnerability, revealing an unwavering commitment to not just reclaim her narrative but to take decisive, strident action. They were no longer just two individuals navigating darkness. They morphed into allies on parallel trajectories of growth. That's exactly it, he affirmed. Every word you choose can either empower you or allow him a foothold back into your life. The task felt daunting, yet emboldened by the necessity for strategic execution, they dove deep into crafting their confrontation script. It wasn't merely an act of preparation, it was an exercise in reclaiming agency, drawing lines they had allowed to blur for far too long. In the midst of this strategizing, Mike felt the urgency of self-reflection press against his psyche. He had reveled in the role of supporter, but now, facing the reality of their imminent confrontation with Tom, he confronted his latent ambitions more openly than he ever had. I need to present my concerns too, he voiced, grappling with newfound courage. Not just yours. The realization dawned on him his aspirations mattered as much as Sarah's. Their partnership required balance and mutual responsibility. Sarah looked at him, her eyes softened by understanding, yet filled with an ineffable strength. What do you want to say? She prompted, her encouragement fostering deeper introspection. I want to tell Tom that he can't define our future. The words flowed naturally, unencumbered by fear. I need to show him that I'm no longer the silent presence in someone else's struggle. I have my own life to protect. The resolve in Mike's voice was a breakthrough. Perhaps this was what he had been seeking all along, recognizing himself as an integral player in both his and Sarah's battle. Their paths had converged, intertwining not just in confrontation but in expressing who they were destined to become. As they honed their message, each sentence took on weight, a powerful declaration poised to challenge the fragments of fear that had once held them captive. The room began to shimmer with anticipation, every deliberate word fed the growing fire of conviction. The sound of Sarah's phone interrupting once more cut sharply through the charged atmosphere. It's from Tom again. She hesitated, a flicker of caution in her eyes. Mike's heartbeat quickened, a mix of trepidation and solidarity coursing through him. Open it, he urged. With her finger hovering above the screen, Sarah drew a deep breath. What more could he possibly say? Would it further bind them to his toxic grip, or would it fortify their resolve? A new message flickered into view, and they both leaned in closer. The unsettling truth was about to unfold, challenging every ounce of growth they had claimed and beckoning them toward an insurmountable decision. Would this be the moment of reckoning they descripted, or a pivot toward an even darker confrontation? In that suspended breath of anticipation, Mike realized their journey had only just begun, as they prepared to face the demons once and for all, not only for themselves but for the bond they were beginning to forge anew. The message blinked ominously on the screen. I know what you're planning. Don't think you can escape this. A chill crawled down Mike's spine as he absorbed Tom's words, a potent reminder of the danger lurking in the shadows. The very foundations of their resolve trembled, and the potent aroma of fear threatened to overwhelm the air. Do you see this? Sarah's voice wavered, but her eyes sparked with defiance. This is a direct threat. He wants us to back down. Mike clenched his fists, feeling the heat of anger surging within him. It ignited something dormant, a fierce determination to confront the man who had overshadowed their lives for far too long. No, he said, a low intensity fueling his voice. This is our moment. We can't allow him to dictate our choices through intimidation. He could sense Sarah's resolve waver slightly, but he needed to ignite that spark in her once again. You've faced him before and stood your ground. Now it's my turn alongside you. He stepped closer, his mind racing with the implications of their confrontation. What if he retaliates? Sarah asked, a quiver in her tone betraying her concern. What if confronting him puts us in danger? Mike took a breath, grounding himself in the present moment. Every change takes risks. But allowing fear to control us would be the greatest risk of all. He saw the flicker of recognition in her eyes. They were in this together, and he felt a sense of urgency to bolster her spirit. What if we flip this? He proposed, his thoughts crystallizing into a strategic plan. Instead of engaging with his threats emotionally, we confront them with facts. We outline our determination, backed by evidence of our growth and the support we've gathered. We're not just fighting him, we're asserting who we are. That could work, Sarah replied, her brow furrowing slightly as she considered it. It was a pivotal moment for both of them, a declaration of self-affirmation that transcended mere survival. As they began crafting their approach, Mike felt an unfamiliar but exhilarating wave of clarity wash over him. Each word they penned became a bullet point of resilience, sharpening their focus. He was no longer just the supporting character in Sarah's story, he was writing his own narrative alongside hers. They dissected Tom's previous tactics, meticulously analyzing each encounter. He likes to manipulate. To instill doubt, Sarah noted thoughtfully. We need solid evidence that he has no power over our lives anymore. The words hung in the air, and Mike could see the resolve growing in her demeanor. Exactly. We need to be 10 steps ahead of him, he affirmed. The knowledge fueled him, banishing the shadows of uncertainty that had lingered. Moments turned into hours as they crafted their arguments, rehearsing their respective lines until they felt like battle-tested warriors preparing for everything that was about to unfold. With each phrase, Mike discovered a burgeoning confidence. Thoughts that had remained buried were now rising like a tide within him. As he leaned back, a mix of fatigue and exhilaration washed over him. They had filled the space around them not just with plans, but with the palpable resistance against their fears. It was a newfound camaraderie forged in shared struggle, a pathway toward reclamation, both professional and personal. Let us set a date for the confrontation, Sarah suggested, a glimmer of anticipation dancing in her eyes. Tomorrow, Mike decided firmly. The prospect of facing Tom hung tantalizingly close. The crack of dawn would crest not just a new day but a new chapter in their lives. They would confront the embodiment of their fears and emerge unscathed. However, as they shared a moment of silent acknowledgement, Mike felt an undercurrent of doubt creep back in. He and Sarah had idealized this confrontation, but the real challenge lay in the emotional weight that Tom carried. Could they endure the fallout? The moment lingered, heavy with tension, as uncertainty pulsed beneath the surface. The time had come to face Tom, but what awaited them in the confrontation would challenge everything they had fought to reclaim. Mike's heart raced at the thought he wasn't just battling for Sarah anymore, he was fighting for his own future, for the person he wanted to be. But would that be enough? What if Tom's retaliation was more dangerous than anything they had anticipated? With that unresolved tension seeping into their plans, Mike steeled himself for the reality of the next day. Their moment of truth loomed closer than ever, but the outcome remained shrouded in uncertainty. A potent mix of dread and exhilaration gripped him. The clock was ticking, and the true test of their metamorphosis was about to unfold. Would they succeed in redefining their lives, or would Tom's hold over them tighten one final time? As dawn broke, casting light into the small space where Mike and Sarah had spent the night strategizing, a sense of readiness intertwined with anxiety hung thick in the air. There was no denying the gravity of the situation they were about to face. The confrontation with Tom felt like standing on the precipice of a cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. Mike felt the chill of the morning seep under his skin, heightening his awareness of every detail. He glanced at Sarah, who was fidgeting with her coffee cup, her usual composure faltering. He could sense her internal struggle, a reflection of his own tumultuous emotions. How could he support her while wrestling with his own fears? "Hey," he said gently, breaking the silence. "Are you ready?" She nodded slowly, though her eyes betrayed her uncertainty. "I've been thinking about what happens if things don't go as planned. What if he turns the tables?" Their hesitation echoed in the room, amplifying the anxiety that simmered beneath the surface. "That's always a possibility," Mike acknowledged. "But we're prepared, right? This is about asserting our rights, proving that he can't control us anymore." He watched as her expression shifted, a flicker of determination emerging alongside the fear. He felt invigorated by her small transformation, a reminder that his own clarity was not just an internal discovery but also a catalyst for them both. As they left the apartment, Mike felt the weight of anticipation pressing down on him like a dense fog. Each step toward their destination felt monumental, cementing their purpose on this daunting journey. He realized that the outcome of this confrontation was more than a personal battle, it was a moment of self-definition. Arriving at a quirky cafe that had become their designated meeting point, Mike and Sarah stepped inside. The chatter around them was a stark contrast to the tumult in their minds. They exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the calm before the storm. "Let us make it clear what we stand for," Mike urged, feeling adrenaline coursing through him. "We've earned our place here. No one can take that from us." Taking a deep breath, they settled at a table near a window. The sun streamed in, a balm for their frayed nerves. As they waited for Tom to arrive, Mike couldn't help but reflect on their journey. The fears that had once paralyzed him now felt like fuel for the fire inside. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over their table, and a familiar voice cut through their thoughts. "I see you two are ready." Tom smirked, his presence commanding and unnerving. Mike locked eyes with Sarah, a silent agreement flowing between them. It was now or never. "Tom, we need to talk," Mike began, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions. The words tasted bittersweet on his tongue. He was stepping into a space he had long avoided. Tom glanced between them, assessing. "Really? What could you possibly say that would interest me?" The taunt hung heavy in the air, and Mike felt the tension buckle down in his chest. "We're done allowing you to manipulate us," Sarah asserted, her voice growing stronger. "This is about taking our lives back, and you no longer have power over us." Mike felt the shift, not just in her tone but in the atmosphere around them. They were no longer the fearful duo waiting for permission to exist. They were bold, ready to reclaim their narratives. As Tom's laughter echoed, a chilling realization crept over Mike, a realization that translated to one simple thought: confronting Tom was only the beginning. The fear that had lived in his gut transformed into resolve as he prepared to navigate the treacherous waters of retribution and retaliation. "Let us see if you really can handle this," Tom said, a glint of malice in his eyes. "I'll make you wish you never came here." The stakes were higher than ever, and as the initial exchange turned into a verbal spar, Mike wondered if the confrontation would reveal the strength they had nurtured beneath the surface. A sense of clarity mingled with dread filled him. This was the ultimate test of their growth, and the outcome remained perilously suspended in uncertainty. What depths of resilience would they unearth as the confrontation escalated? Would they stand united against Tom's looming threats, or would they unravel in the midst of his vendetta? Mike squared his shoulders, feeling the knot in his stomach tighten. As Tom's words hung in the air, a deep breath surged through him. This was not just a confrontation for the sake of confrontation, it was a necessary excavation of strength, vulnerability, and determination. He felt Sarah's intensity mirror his own, their collective courage propelling them forward into the storm. "Let us lay all the cards on the table," Mike said, willing his voice to remain calm, authoritative. He took a breath, pushing back the rising tide of dread. This was an opportunity to redefine the narrative, not just for them, but for anyone who had ever been overshadowed. "Your intimidation tactics won't work on us anymore. We've committed to changing our story." Tom's smile faded slightly, and Mike noted the way his expression darkened. The retaliation had begun. "You really think you can rewrite the narrative? You're nothing but toys in my playroom. Remember who holds the power here." For a fleeting moment, doubt crept in like an unwelcome fog. Did they have the strength to withstand this onslaught? Were they truly poised to take back control? A flicker of uncertainty ignited thoughts of past failures, but Mike swiftly extinguished it. Instead, he focused on the progress they had both made. "We're not just here to talk," Sarah interjected, her voice cutting through the tension like a hot knife. "We're here to reclaim our lives, and we know our worth now. You don't define us anymore." The defiance glimmered in her eyes, and Mike felt his own resolve surge. He realized that this confrontation was about more than facing Tom, it was about unearthing their own power within themselves. They were not merely reacting to his aggression, they were staking their ground, claiming the ground back that had once felt so distant. "Power is a lazy concept, Tom," Mike continued, channeling his energy into a focused energy. "It's nothing without respect. And you've lost that," along with any grip you had over us. Tom's face twisted, a blend of incredulity and anger, and in that moment, Mike felt an exhilarating satisfaction that he had never experienced before. He was taking a stand, asserting his existence unapologetically. Yet the tension in the room thickened, palpable. Tom leaned in, eyes narrowing. "You think this is over? You think you can just walk away unscathed?" Mike's heartbeat quickened, but he stood his ground. "This isn't about escape. It's about liberation. We're connecting with who we are, and the fear you've instilled won't chain us anymore." For the first time, Tom's facade cracked, and Mike saw the chinks in his armor. Was Tom truly invincible, or was he merely a man scrambling to maintain control that was slowly slipping away? The realization that they could see through him ignited something primal within Mike, a primal urge to transcend this predetermined narrative. As the verbal sparring continued, Mike seized the moment to weave in a new strategy. Each statement became a declaration of their freedom, each response built a layer of armor against Tom's venom. This wasn't just about winning or losing, it was about discovery. And discovery is messy, layered with internal conflict and revelations about hidden strengths. As the confrontation escalated, Mike recognized something profound blooming within him. He was no longer just reacting to Tom's threats, he was actively shaping his future. Suddenly, Tom's expression shifted, revealing the slightest hint of fear. "All this bravado won't save you when the consequences come crashing down." "Perhaps," Mike countered, feeling invigorated despite the stakes. "But it's time for you to realize the more you push, the more we will push back. We are beyond your reach now." The tension etched deep lines on both their faces, beauty mingling with struggle, but Mike felt invulnerable as he flipped their dynamic. They were not just mere pawns in Tom's game, they were the players, and it was his turn to feel the weight of their shared unwillingness to cower. As Tom fired back with renewed aggression, Mike could sense the veiled desperation escalating. He couldn't help but wonder, could they channel this dynamic further into actual victories? What lay on the other side of this confrontation? The battle was only beginning. Mike felt he was merely on the edge of uncovering a reservoir of personal resilience that could surprise them all. Would the outcome of this ultimate standoff forge their growth, or were there unforeseen challenges hiding in the shadows? As the exchange intensified, an undeniable sense of growth enveloped Mike and Sarah. They stood shoulder to shoulder, refusing to buckle under Tom's oppressive tactics. For so long, fear had been the architect of their lives, but now, they were starting to build something more solid: resilience, understanding, and self-worth. "Your manipulation no longer works, Tom," Mike stated, his voice steady and commanding. "You've underestimated our resolve. We're not defined by your perception of us. We've fought hard to reclaim our narratives, and we will not let you overshadow that." Shock flickered across Tom's face, followed by defiance. "Do you really believe that? You might be delusional enough to think you can just walk away from me, but that's where you're wrong." A fire ignited within Mike. "We're not just walking away. We're standing our ground. This isn't just an end, it's a new beginning. Whatever backlash you threaten will only fuel our journey." Each word resonated with confidence, punctuating their united front against his looming darkness. Amidst the escalating tensions, Sarah leaned in, her determination belying the vulnerability they both harbored. "Understand this, we hold the power now. This conversation is no longer about you controlling the narrative, it's about us owning it." Mike felt the weight of her commitment, and suddenly he was struck by the realization that their confrontation with Tom was a defining moment, not just in the fight against him, but a personal epiphany for both of them. They were shedding remnants of the past and stepping into their authentic selves. With each back-and-forth volley, they discovered newfound strengths. Even as Tom increased his threats, and his voice dripped with malice, Mike felt changes bubbling beneath the surface. He was no longer the passive figure in the shadows, but rather someone who stood proud, side by side with Sarah. "You'll regret this," Tom hissed, scrambling to regain control, but Mike's heartbeat surged with purpose. "No," he said, asserting command over the moment. "This is the turning point, not just for us, but for everyone who has ever felt trapped by your power play." The magnitude of his words buoyed him, sharpening his vision. "How do you feel now, Tom?" Sarah interjected, her eyes alight with resolve. We're letting the air out of your threats. You've lost your grip on fear. The shadows that had cloaked Mike's heart began to lift. Could they rise beyond the storm swirling around them? Each desperate maneuver from Tom became inextricably linked to Mike's drive for transformation. They were not only confronting a tyrant, they were dismantling their own limitations. As Tom faltered, something shifted within Mike. Where doubt had once taken root, confidence surged forth. This was more than a conflict over power, it was about personal liberation. Embracing this shift let fresh clarity wash over him, illuminating everything he had ever done to protect Emily, to shield Sarah, to carve a respectable life from mere obscurity. Imagine a life free of intimidation, he said, the weight of his words resonating. Not just for us, but for those trapped by your control. You won't haunt us any longer. In that moment, he realized that confronting Tom wasn't just about asserting dominance. It was about reclaiming agency over their lives, a declaration that shook the very core of his being. Then, as if feeling the walls close in, Tom cast a last, desperate attempt to regain his power. You're nothing without me. I made you, both of you. You think you can rise above without the crutch of my shadow? With an exhilarating rush of satisfaction, Mike knew the truth. We existed before you ever crossed our paths, and we will thrive beyond your presence. You cannot embody what you have never owned. That pivotal remark hung in the air as a subtle transformation flickered in Tom's eyes: confusion, defeat, realization. In this battle of wills, Mike could feel the cumulative strength surging through him. The fear that once stifled them began to dissipate as the affirmations of their own worth took hold. With the weight of insecurity lifting, both Mike and Sarah discovered that they were not just standing against Tom, they were standing for themselves. The realization propelled Mike's heart to swell with pride for not only how far he had come, but how far Sarah had come as well. As Tom's facade cracked, Mike leaned in, ready for the final push. We are reborn from the ashes you left, and today marks the end of your narrative in our lives. With that declaration, Mike felt a surge of warmth and undeniable sense of triumph. Together, they had emerged from the shadows, standing tall against a man who represented everything they had fought to escape. Their personal evolution culminated in this defining moment. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Mike recognized the profound personal development he had undergone. Embracing vulnerability had not only fortified his bond with Sarah, but it had also unveiled the latent courage within him. He was no longer just helping someone rise, he had risen himself, reclaiming his life in the process. As they walked away from the cafe, the weight of fear evaporated, replaced by a newfound resilience and connection. The path before them was uncharted, but Mike felt solid confidence in navigating it alongside Sarah. Together, they had built a profound partnership rooted in understanding, respect, and ownership of their authentic selves. This was the beginning of a transformed life, one filled with potential and purpose. They were no longer at the mercy of others' narratives, they were the authors of their futures, ready to embrace the myriad possibilities awaiting them. Now, it was time to seize the day. If you're inspired by Mike and Sarah's incredible journey, you need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support for more astonishing stories that break barriers and transform lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this empowering content. Comment below with your reactions and wild theories about what happens next in their journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of transformation. Together, we can keep the flame of inspiration burning bright.